Welcome to an intriguing exploration of the biblical perspective on Palestine, a land that has held profound significance throughout centuries. Our goal is not to delve into current political issues or take any particular side. Instead, we're here to explore what ancient texts say about the spiritual importance of Palestine and the unique role it plays in biblical prophecy. This approach allows us to view Palestine through the lens of history, faith, and prophecy, inviting us to see beyond the physical boundaries and into its symbolic meaning in a divine narrative. According to several biblical sources, Palestine is more than a geographical location. It represents a pivotal piece in the broader story of humanity's relationship with the divine. Throughout the Bible, this region emerges repeatedly as a promised land, set apart with unique blessings and responsibilities. It's described as the land promised to Abraham and his descendants, a place intended for holiness, where God's people would live under his guidance and serve as a light unto the nations. This perspective elevates the land of Palestine from a simple piece of territory to a region imbued with sacred purpose, one that connects the physical world to divine prophecy. In understanding Palestine's role in biblical prophecy, it's essential to explore the peoples mentioned in these sacred texts. The Bible frequently references groups like the Canaanites, the Philistines, and the Israelites, each of whom held distinct roles in the unfolding of God's plan for this land. However, rather than focusing on any historical tensions, our purpose here is to understand how these groups symbolize various spiritual elements within the larger prophetic framework of the Bible. In this light, the Canaanites and Philistines, often portrayed as Israel's adversaries, reflect the trials and tribulations faced by the people of God as they sought to establish a covenant with Him in this promised land. This narrative isn't about casting judgment, but about uncovering a more profound, symbolic message about the struggle for faithfulness and divine fulfillment. Our journey will emphasize the peace and reconciliation woven throughout the biblical narrative. Indeed, prophecy often presents a vision of the ultimate unity of nations, a time when all will coexist harmoniously under God's kingdom. By focusing on these messages of peace, we're encouraged to view the land not as a place of endless conflict, but as a hopeful symbol of divine harmony that all nations will one day witness. This vision of a reconciled humanity living in peace stands as a testament to the prophetic promises that Jerusalem and its surrounding lands are meant to fulfill. The Bible's words hold an enduring relevance, encouraging those who study them to reflect on themes of unity and faithfulness. By examining Palestine in this light, we see it as a land where ancient prophecies are believed to converge, revealing a plan that transcends earthly disputes. Many scholars and theologians suggest that these prophecies are meant to inspire reflection on how we can live in harmony with divine will. As we explore the significance of Palestine in the Bible, remember that this analysis is purely educational. YouTube encourages content creators to approach sensitive topics with respect and neutrality, particularly when examining religious beliefs. We'll avoid any modern political associations, focusing strictly on scriptural interpretations and historical perspectives. This exploration is meant to inspire curiosity, encourage a deeper understanding of spiritual heritage, and reveal how faith traditions interpret sacred places. This journey through biblical prophecy offers an inspiring reminder: peace is the ultimate promise of God, and Palestine stands at the heart of this promise. As we unravel the profound messages within these ancient texts, let's hold on to a vision of hope and reconciliation, principles that resonate deeply within the pages of the Bible and speak to all who seek peace in our world. Join us as we continue this enlightening journey into the sacred story of Palestine and its role in the prophecies of the Bible. Part 1: The Role of the Palestinian People in Biblical Prophecies. As we continue to explore the sacred significance of Palestine in the Bible, an intriguing question arises: what role do the ancient peoples of this land, the Canaanites, Philistines, and others, play in the unfolding story of prophecy? By examining their presence and role in biblical narratives, we gain insight into how these groups contributed to the spiritual narrative of Palestine as a divinely significant land. In the Bible, the Canaanites are frequently portrayed as the original inhabitants of the land, long before Abraham's descendants arrived. Known for their agricultural and trade communities, the Canaanites were an influential people whose lives were deeply intertwined with the land's identity. Rather than viewing them through a modern lens, it's helpful to focus on what their presence symbolized: a land filled with various cultures, beliefs, and practices that contrasted with those of the Israelites. According to the book of Genesis, God promised this land to Abraham and his descendants, but only after the sin of the Amorites has reached its full measure. Genesis 15 verse 16. This phrase has led many religious scholars to interpret the occupation of Canaan as both a divine promise and a judgment on Canaanite practices, which were often depicted as incompatible with the values of the Israelites. Following the Canaanites, we encounter the Philistines, another ancient people whose name, as some scholars suggest, may be linked to the modern term Palestine. The Philistines, like the Canaanites, were frequently at odds with Israel in biblical texts, often challenging them in significant battles, like the famous clash between David and Goliath. In the biblical context, the Philistines are seen not only as military opponents but also as representatives of a broader spiritual opposition. Some theologians suggest that these portrayals offer more than a historical recount. They present a symbolic struggle, representing forces that challenge the values of faith, obedience, and the divine mission assigned to God's people. However, despite these depictions of rivalry and struggle, the Bible does not portray these people as mere antagonists. Instead, it situates them within a larger framework of divine purpose. As the Israelites journeyed to fulfill their covenant, the challenges they faced with the Canaanites and Philistines can be seen as symbolic obstacles on their spiritual path. In this sense, the biblical narrative encourages us to reflect on the idea of spiritual perseverance, suggesting that the journey to fulfilling a divine purpose is rarely without challenges. This perspective encourages a more nuanced view of the ancient people of Palestine. Rather than seeing them simply as adversaries, it's possible to view them as part of the rich tapestry of humanity that inhabited this land, each playing a role in the grander design of biblical prophecy. Their presence emphasizes that this land has long been a meeting place for various peoples and beliefs, all of which contribute to its prophetic significance. The Bible suggests that the ultimate purpose of Palestine transcends conflict. In the words of many prophetic texts, there is a vision of peace and unity that will one day encompass all nations, including the descendants of these ancient peoples. By understanding the spiritual roles assigned to the Canaanites and Philistines in these prophecies, we see that Palestine's significance is not only a matter of physical territory but a deeper, more symbolic one. This is a land marked by divine intention, a land that serves as a setting for the story of redemption, peace, and reconciliation in God's time. This exploration offers us a fresh perspective on how Palestine's ancient peoples, as described in the Bible, contribute to its unique role in divine prophecy. As we continue, let's keep in mind that these interpretations reflect a blend of symbolic, historical, and spiritual insights rather than rigid definitions. The Bible's message of ultimate peace, unity, and divine fulfillment transcends any one group, drawing us into a vision that promises hope and reconciliation. Part 2: The prophetic role of Palestine in future biblical events. As we delve deeper, an even more profound question arises: why does the Bible emphasize Palestine as a focal point for future events, especially those tied to the end times? The biblical prophecies suggest that Palestine, and specifically Jerusalem, will serve as the epicenter of divine intervention in the final chapters of human history. This enduring significance highlights that the land's role is not just historical but also prophetic, deeply woven into the fabric of what some describe as the ultimate divine plan. The book of Zechariah offers a striking prophecy that foreshadows the weight of Jerusalem's role in the last days. According to Zechariah 12 verses 2-3, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, and in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people." This powerful image portrays Jerusalem as a source of unease and challenge to all nations, a place that carries a unique burden of destiny. Many religious scholars see this prophecy as a prediction of global tension centered around Jerusalem, a tension that is not purely political but deeply spiritual, hinting at the culmination of divine plans that transcend human control. The prophetic importance of Jerusalem and its surrounding regions is further underscored in the book of Isaiah, where the mountain of the Lord is envisioned as a future gathering place for all nations. Isaiah 2 verses 2-4 famously proclaims that in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains, and all nations shall flow to it. This passage conveys a vision of peace and unity, where diverse peoples come together to seek God's guidance. In this divine vision, weapons of war will be transformed into instruments of peace, and a nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. This ultimate vision of harmony illustrates that Palestine's prophetic role is not solely about conflict, but about its potential. As a place of unity and divine justice, a place where God's kingdom can be fully realized. The importance of Jerusalem in biblical prophecy is also seen in the New Testament, where it holds a central place in the anticipated return of Jesus Christ. In the book of Zechariah 14:4, a prophecy suggests that, in the last days, the Messiah will stand upon the Mount of Olives outside Jerusalem, marking a divine intervention that will change the course of history. The Mount of Olives, located just outside the ancient city, is thus seen as the stage for a miraculous transformation. For Christians, this moment signifies the arrival of God's eternal kingdom, a reign of peace and righteousness that will end all earthly divisions and conflicts. Revelation, the final book of the Bible, also echoes the critical role of Palestine in end-time prophecies. Here, we see visions of Armageddon, a climactic battle that will take place in the Valley of Megiddo, a location often associated with modern-day Palestine. Revelation 16 verse 16 describes this battle as a decisive confrontation between the forces of good and evil, an event that many believe will signal the end of the age and the beginning of a new, divine order. The association of such significant end-time events with locations in Palestine underscores the land's place within the cosmic battle between light and darkness, a battle that, according to prophecy, will ultimately bring about God's triumph over evil. What's compelling about these prophecies is that they place Palestine at the intersection of earthly and divine plans, as if the land itself is a bridge between humanity and the divine. Through the lens of prophecy, Palestine is not merely a geographical location, it's portrayed as a land chosen for God's ultimate purpose. Whether viewed from the perspective of Judaism, Christianity, or even in some interpretations of Islamic eschatology, the land is seen as a place where divine events will unfold and where the culmination of history is expected to take place. It's worth noting that scholars approach these prophecies with a range of interpretations, and interpretations vary even within religious traditions. Some view these passages symbolically, suggesting they are metaphors for humanity's spiritual struggles and victories. Others believe they are literal predictions of events that will come to pass in specific locations. Regardless of interpretation, what remains clear is the profound spiritual weight that these prophecies place on Palestine. The Bible envisions it as a land destined to witness transformative events that go beyond political or territorial significance, reflecting a divine narrative that speaks to the heart of human existence. Palestine's role in prophecy calls us to consider the larger themes of reconciliation, divine purpose, and the hope for peace. As foretold in these ancient texts, the ultimate fulfillment of these prophecies points to a time when nations will be united in harmony, and the land will serve as a testament to God's plan for humanity. This vision of a peaceful and unified world speaks to the hope that lies at the center of the Bible's message. It reminds us that even amid struggles and conflicts, there exists a promise of divine resolution and eternal peace, a peace that transcends human divisions and draws all people together under the divine presence. In contemplating the prophetic future of Palestine, we are invited to see beyond the limitations of our time and place. The Bible's vision of this land as a focal point for unity, reconciliation, and divine fulfillment encourages us to reflect on how we, too, might contribute to a world of peace and understanding. As we continue our exploration, let us keep in mind that the role of Palestine in biblical prophecy offers not just a glimpse into the future, but a timeless reminder of God's promise to bring peace, justice, and unity to all creation. Part 3: The Covenant Land, Spiritual Significance of the Promised Land to Ancient Peoples and Modern Reflections. To understand why Palestine holds such profound spiritual importance in the Bible, we need to examine it as the covenant land promised to Abraham and his descendants. This promise, or covenant, is central to the biblical narrative and is mentioned repeatedly throughout the Scriptures. But what does it mean for a land to be promised by God, and how does this shape its spiritual significance, not only for ancient peoples, but also for those who revere it today? According to the book of Genesis, God made a sacred covenant with Abraham, pledging that his descendants would inherit a land flowing with blessings, a land where they would live in faithfulness and obedience to God's commandments. In Genesis 17 verse 8, God says, "I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God." This passage reflects more than just a promise of physical territory. It speaks to a deep, abiding relationship between God and his chosen people. The covenant land is seen as both a divine gift and a sacred responsibility, a place where the people of God would uphold his laws and reflect his holiness to the world. The promise of this land was not an endorsement of possession in a material sense, but a call to live in holiness, justice, and reverence. The Bible frequently emphasizes that this land was intended as a place where God's people would live by his laws, setting an example of righteousness and spiritual devotion. The land itself was imbued with a sense of holiness, a space where the presence of God could be felt, and where the Israelites would be a light unto the nations, Isaiah 42 verse 6. This vision elevates the land's significance beyond physical boundaries. It becomes a symbol of divine relationship, a place that bridges heaven and earth. The concept of a covenant land also brings an ethical dimension. The Bible repeatedly highlights that the land was given on the condition that its people would follow God's commands and uphold justice. For instance, in Leviticus 25 verse 23, God declares, "The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me." This idea conveys that the land itself belongs to God and that the people are its stewards rather than its absolute owners. This notion of stewardship reinforces the idea that living in this land requires adherence to higher principles of justice, compassion, and responsibility. As we consider the sacred responsibility attached to this land, it's also crucial to reflect on what it meant for the various ancient peoples who inhabited it, such as the Canaanites, Philistines, and others. According to biblical accounts, these groups had long lived on this land before the Israelites arrived, and they had established their own cultures, traditions, and religious practices. However, in the biblical narrative, these practices are often depicted as being at odds with the covenantal values that God intended for the land. The Canaanites, for example, are frequently described as engaging in practices that were incompatible with the monotheistic and ethical standards that the Israelites were called to uphold. This tension creates a powerful symbolic contrast. The land of Canaan, later known as Palestine, represents not just a place but a space where differing values, beliefs, and spiritual paths intersect. Some scholars view this as a reflection of humanity's broader struggle between self-interest and divine purpose. The ancient stories remind us that the journey to fulfill a divine calling often includes challenges, both internal and external, as people are called to live according to higher spiritual ideals. This struggle, symbolized by the tensions between the Israelites and other ancient inhabitants, can be seen as a timeless reminder of the difficulties inherent in living out one's faith and values. For many, the concept of a promised land is more than historical or geographic, it's a symbol of spiritual aspiration. Just as ancient peoples sought to fulfill their covenant with God in this land, many today view Palestine as a sacred space where humanity's relationship with the divine is still felt and explored. The land continues to inspire devotion and reverence across faiths, and its spiritual significance resonates deeply with those who see it as a place of connection with God's promises. It's worth noting that for various religious communities today, the concept of a covenant land extends beyond one specific group. It reflects a shared hope for unity and peace in a world often divided. In this light, the land's significance can be seen as a call to honor the principles of justice, compassion, and respect for one another. By approaching the covenant land with this understanding, we're invited to see it not as a point of division but as a sacred space that reminds us of our shared humanity and spiritual responsibilities. As we continue this journey through biblical prophecy, let us hold in mind that the covenant land of Palestine symbolizes not only a promise made long ago but a vision for the future, a vision where peace, faith, and divine purpose unite all who seek to live according to God's will. This vision offers a timeless lesson that in honoring the sacredness of this land, we also honor the values that draw us closer to a world of harmony and spiritual fulfillment. Part 4. The Interwoven Themes of Conflict and Peace in Biblical Prophecies. In exploring the significance of Palestine in the Bible, we encounter an intriguing duality. While the region is often depicted as a place of conflict, it's also presented as a land of profound peace and reconciliation in the end times. This interwoven theme of struggle and harmony highlights an important aspect of biblical prophecy, one that speaks to the journey humanity must undertake toward a divine, lasting peace. Throughout the Bible, Palestine is frequently portrayed as a site of spiritual challenges, where the Israelites faced continuous opposition from neighboring groups like the Canaanites and Philistines. These conflicts, however, were often depicted as more than just territorial disputes. They symbolized the ongoing struggle between divine purpose and worldly resistance. The opposition from groups like the Philistines is depicted as a constant thorn for the Israelites, testing their faith, resilience, and commitment to God's commandments. These stories of conflict were never solely about victory in the worldly sense, but about the spiritual growth and trials of the Israelites on their path toward fulfilling God's promises. One of the most iconic accounts of such a conflict is the story of David and Goliath. In this well-known narrative, young David confronts the Philistine giant Goliath in a battle that symbolizes the triumph of faith over might, of divine support over physical strength. David's victory is more than a tale of personal courage. It represents a moment where spiritual trust and the power of God overcome the forces of opposition. This story has become a powerful metaphor for the way in which faith can help individuals face and overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, even in times of profound conflict. Yet, the Bible doesn't end with conflict. Rather, it points us toward a vision of divine peace. The prophets describe a future in which Jerusalem, and by extension, Palestine, becomes a place of harmony where all nations come together in unity. Isaiah's prophecy famously depicts this vision, stating, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." Isaiah 2 verse 4. This powerful image suggests a complete transformation, where tools of warfare are repurposed for cultivation, symbolizing a shift from destruction to nurturing and growth. Palestine, the land once marked by conflicts and trials, is thus foretold to become a beacon of peace, where all divisions are reconciled under God's ultimate purpose. This prophecy of peace is echoed in the New Testament as well. The book of Revelation, while filled with vivid images of struggle and ultimate battles, ends with a vision of the New Jerusalem, a city of peace where God dwells among His people, and where there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. Revelation 21 verse 4. This portrayal of a final, divine reconciliation reminds us that Palestine's prophetic role is not only about past or future conflicts, but also about the realization of God's kingdom on earth. In this kingdom, the pain of human divisions will give way to a profound unity, symbolizing a fulfillment of the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Bible's portrayal of both conflict and peace in Palestine serves as a powerful reminder of the human journey. The land's history of struggles, losses, and triumphs mirrors the spiritual path of overcoming inner and outer challenges, leading ultimately to divine peace. Through these prophetic texts, Palestine becomes a symbol of transformation, a place where human strife evolves into divine harmony. Moreover, these prophetic visions encourage us to see beyond the physical struggles associated with the land. The ultimate goal of the prophecy is not endless conflict, but a world united in the knowledge of God, where justice, compassion, and peace prevail. This vision challenges us to approach the land story not as a tale of divisions, but as an invitation to seek unity, guided by the principles of love, forgiveness, and mutual respect. In interpreting these prophecies, many religious scholars emphasize that the stories of conflict are not meant to justify war or division. Instead, they serve to remind us of the sacred potential within each person and nation to overcome discord. The path to peace, as envisioned in these biblical prophecies, requires courage, faith, and a commitment to God's higher calling. Palestine, then, becomes a symbol of hope, where even the most profound struggles can lead to a place of peace and reconciliation. As we reflect on the biblical vision of Palestine's future, we are reminded of the promise that peace is not only possible, but is the ultimate destiny of this sacred land. The journey to that peace may be marked by challenges and trials, yet it holds a promise that all who seek God's will, regardless of background or nation, can ultimately be united under a shared vision of love and harmony. This is the deeper meaning of Palestine in biblical prophecy, a land where the trials of humanity find their resolution in God's timeless promise of peace. Part 5. The Sacred Timeline, Prophecies of Palestine across different eras. As we journey through the Bible's portrayal of Palestine, we encounter a remarkable theme, the timeline of prophetic significance that stretches across different eras, connecting past, present, and future. Palestine's role in biblical prophecy is not confined to one period or event. Instead, it unfolds progressively, revealing new dimensions of its purpose with each generation. This ongoing timeline serves as a reminder that the land is more than a static location. It is a living narrative of divine intention and spiritual growth. The earliest mention of Palestine as a land with divine purpose begins in the time of Abraham, when God makes his initial covenant with the patriarch. In Genesis, God promises to give Abraham and his descendants all the land of Canaan, Genesis 17 verse 8, establishing it as an inheritance that will serve as the foundation for their covenantal relationship. This promise is not just about territory, it's about creating a holy community, a people set apart to live according to God's principles. For Abraham and his descendants, the land becomes the starting point of a divine journey, a place where faith, obedience, and identity are interwoven. Moving forward to the time of Moses, we see this promise reaffirmed as the Israelites prepare to leave Egypt and enter the land that was promised to their forefathers. In the book of Exodus, Palestine represents the culmination of the Israelites' journey from slavery to freedom. Here, it's not only a physical destination, but also a symbol of divine liberation and redemption. As the Israelites cross the wilderness, the Promised Land becomes the place where they can establish a society grounded in the commandments given by God, a place to serve as a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, Exodus 19 verse 6. This era underscores Palestine as a land of spiritual potential, a place where the Israelites' commitment to God will be put to the test. The significance of Palestine continues to evolve during the time of the kings, particularly under King David and Solomon. For David, Jerusalem, a city within this sacred land, becomes the political and spiritual center of Israel, establishing it as the focal point of the covenant. According to 2 Samuel 7 verse 16, God promises David that his throne will be established forever, marking Jerusalem as a place of eternal significance. When Solomon builds the first temple, Jerusalem transforms from a royal city into a place of worship where God's presence is believed to dwell among His people. During this period, Palestine becomes not only the heart of Israel but also a spiritual beacon for all nations. The vision of Israel as a light to the world reaches its peak, with the land embodying a divine invitation for all nations to seek wisdom and righteousness. However, the prophetic timeline of Palestine also includes periods of exile and loss, most notably the Babylonian exile. After the destruction of the First Temple and the loss of Jerusalem, the land becomes a symbol of spiritual longing and hope for restoration. The prophets of this era, such as Jeremiah and Ezekiel, speak of a future return, promising that God will gather His people back to their homeland and renew His covenant with them. In Jeremiah 29 verses 10 to 14, God assures the exiled Israelites that I will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. For the Jewish people, Palestine becomes a symbol of God's faithfulness, a place where even in absence, the hope of return and redemption is kept alive. This era reflects a profound aspect of biblical prophecy, the idea that Palestine is not only a land to possess, but also a place of spiritual renewal and divine mercy. In the time of Jesus, Palestine's prophetic role expands further as it becomes the setting for events that hold significance for the entire world. Jesus' ministry and teachings unfold in this land, and it is here, in Jerusalem, that He is crucified and resurrected. For Christians, Palestine becomes the land where God's ultimate act of love and redemption takes place. The teachings of Jesus introduce a new dimension to the prophetic timeline, presenting the land as a place where divine forgiveness and salvation are accessible to all people, regardless of nationality or heritage. This pivotal moment in the land of Palestine reverberates through history, marking it as a place of reconciliation between humanity and God, a land where love triumphs over sin and death. Finally, the timeline of prophecy stretches forward into the future, with the Bible envisioning a time when Palestine, and especially Jerusalem, will play a central role in the end of days. As discussed in earlier sections, prophecies in Zechariah and Revelation depict Jerusalem as the setting for a climactic struggle between the forces of good and evil. In Zechariah 14, we read of a day when God's feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, bringing about a divine intervention that will reshape history and usher in an era of peace. This final vision points to Palestine as a place where ultimate reconciliation will occur, fulfilling the promises made to Abraham, David, and all who have placed their hope in God. What is truly remarkable about this prophetic timeline is that it presents Palestine not as a static land, but as a dynamic place of unfolding spiritual significance. From Abraham's covenant to the prophet's vision of a restored homeland, from Jesus' ministry to the anticipated end-time fulfillment, Palestine is depicted as a sacred setting for God's relationship with humanity. Each era reveals a new layer of meaning, drawing believers to see the land not simply as a geographical location, but as a testament to God's enduring promise. In reflecting on this timeline, we are invited to consider Palestine as a symbol of our own spiritual journey, a journey marked by promises, challenges, renewal, and ultimate fulfillment. As we see the different roles this land has played across the ages, we are reminded that the path to spiritual peace and fulfillment is continuous, requiring faith, hope, and perseverance. The biblical timeline of Palestine thus serves as an inspiring reminder of God's presence and purpose, not only for a particular people, but for all who seek a connection with the divine. In contemplating the sacred timeline of Palestine, we find that it calls us to be witnesses of God's promises, to honor the history of faith that has taken place there, and to look forward with hope to the peace and reconciliation that prophecy envisions. Part 6, Conclusion: A Vision of Peace and Reconciliation for Palestine. As we conclude our exploration of Palestine's profound significance in biblical prophecy, it is essential to reflect on the overarching themes that emerge throughout this sacred narrative. From its earliest mention as the Promised Land to its role in prophetic visions of the future, Palestine serves as a powerful symbol of divine intention, spiritual perseverance, and the hope for ultimate reconciliation among all peoples. Throughout history, Palestine has been a land marked by both conflict and the promise of peace. It is a place where the struggles of ancient peoples are intertwined with God's covenant, reflecting humanity's ongoing quest for faithfulness amid trials. The narratives we find in the Bible remind us that the journey toward fulfillment of divine promises is rarely smooth. It is often filled with challenges that test the commitment and resilience of God's people. Yet, these stories are not merely historical accounts, they carry a timeless message about the importance of faith, unity, and love. The prophetic visions outlined in the scriptures point to a future where Palestine transforms from a site of division to a beacon of hope. In the prophecies of Isaiah, Zechariah, and Revelation, we see a compelling picture of a world where nations gather in peace, swords are turned into plowshares, and harmony prevails. This vision resonates deeply, particularly in a world often marked by discord and strife. The biblical promise of a reconciled humanity, where the values of justice, compassion, and understanding reign supreme, stands as a challenge and an invitation for all of us today. For many, the significance of Palestine transcends its physical borders. It embodies a spiritual aspiration for a world united under God's will. This land, rich in history and spirituality, encourages believers to seek a deeper understanding of their faith and a commitment to the values that bring people together. It invites us to recognize that, ultimately, the journey toward peace and reconciliation is not just the responsibility of one group but of all humanity. In reflecting on the conclusion of this journey, we must also consider our roles as bearers of this message of peace. Whether through personal actions, community engagement, or broader social movements, each of us has a part to play in embodying the principles that the biblical narrative upholds. The call to love one another, to strive for justice, and to seek understanding across divides is more relevant now than ever. As we envision a future where the promises of peace and unity are realized, we are reminded that such change begins within ourselves and extends outward to our communities and beyond. Furthermore, as we embrace the prophetic message that Palestine holds, we are called to remember the importance of compassion and empathy in our interactions with others. The biblical teachings emphasize that every person, regardless of their background, is deserving of dignity, respect, and love. In recognizing our shared humanity, we open the door to dialogue, understanding, and collaboration, which are essential for achieving lasting peace. Ultimately, the story of Palestine in the Bible is one of hope, a hope that echoes through the ages and invites all who encounter it to join in the pursuit of peace. It is a call to live out the ideals of love and reconciliation that lie at the heart of the prophetic message. As we move forward, let us carry this vision with us, striving to embody the peace that the prophets foretold and seeking to fulfill the promise that this sacred land represents. In conclusion, Palestine is more than just a geographical location, it is a symbol of God's covenant with humanity, a land where the past, present, and future converge in divine purpose. As we reflect on its significance, may we be inspired to work toward a world where peace reigns, where the lessons of the past inform our actions, and where the promise of reconciliation becomes a reality for all people. Let us embrace the hope that the Bible offers, striving to build a future that honors the sacredness of this land and the spiritual journey it represents for all of us.